The driver, a woman experiencing a mental health crisis, stole a minivan and refused to yield. The journey was massive, over 150 miles across 4 California counties, all the way to the U.S. Mexico border. Authorities tried everything. At least 4 times, officers deployed spike strips, but the suspect skillfully swerved around every single one. Monday, November 10, 2025. A chase begins in Ventura County that would redefine the word long distance. For over 2 hours, the minivan flew down the freeway, hitting speeds up to 90 miles per hour as CHP tried to safely contain the situation. The chase finally concluded not with a crash, but with an international border crossing. As the minivan passed into Mexico, CHP was forced to terminate the pursuit. The driver's fate now rests with Mexican authorities. This unique incident raises serious questions about interjurisdictional chases. We cover every angle. Follow us for more incredible pursuit analysis.
Pretty remarkable. Again, we're talking about the traffic because it's not always the case on the 405, as many of us know, especially going through the South Bay. But again, because the CHP are staying on this minivan for so long, and the minivan is not showing to be driving erratically, it just leads me to believe that it can't just be a stolen minivan. There might be something connected to it that, again, we don't know about. I just hope there's no
We did get some new information. It turns out they do know who the driver is, whether it's stolen or not. You know, like I said, we get some information. Sometimes it comes and it goes, and it's accurate and it's not. It just happens too quickly to verify. That's what police believe. But they do believe it's a female, and they know who it is, so it is a female. More than likely, they got that correct. But they're having mental health issues. So it sort of, exasperates things. It makes things a little more difficult for them. But they do know who it is at this point in time. And fortunately, we're not seeing this person drive too aggressively.
Yeah. I was going to say that view through the windshield, it did have the appearance of a woman behind the wheel. So good to get that information out, Scott. Again, if you're just joining us here, 1142, you're looking at this live pursuit from Air 7, a minivan. We've been following it.
80 miles an hour, that's still pretty high rate of speed, but you can tell the normal flow here is over 70, and we don't see the suspect, swerving in and out of traffic. If that was the case, they might be considering, more aggressive tactics to stop this. But right now, I don't think they will. And I can see down in the Long Beach and almost into Seal Beach now, and I just don't see much in the way of heavy traffic. Some pockets of slow traffic, but nothing that's really going to slow the suspect down a lot.
Yeah, and it does seem like they are keeping a decent distance between themselves and the car in front of them. Just a moment ago, there was one car that was sort of about to slow them down pretty well, and the car got over. You would not know that there is a pursuit happening with that minivan because the minivan is not driving at crazy high speeds, making erratic moves. Yeah. I do feel for the person, though, if they are suffering from a mental health emergency. I do wonder if that does take the CHP a little bit back to figure out how are we going to approach this, because Scott, as you know, Mark, as you know, the CHP, they are so well choreographed with their pursuits that they have their watch commander telling them what they should do, how far forward, behind.
So they said it was stolen, and then it turns out it really wasn't stolen. It was someone borrowed the car kind of thing. So we don't know, but for sure, like I mentioned earlier, some of the information comes in so quickly, doesn't get verified. They go with it and they stay with it until they get something different. At this point in time, though, we haven't heard any change. They're considering it, at least as far as the information they give us is still stolen. But once again, someone with mental health issues, I don't think they're going to get aggressive at all. I think we're just going to end up following this until the suspect finally decides to give themselves up. I don't think they're going to get real aggressive and try and stopping it, at least not on the freeway, that's for sure.
Yeah, at least sometimes an indicator of that, of their demeanor and, their mental state. is when they get off the freeway. Should that happen, that's where you can see things change when it comes to red lights and crosswalks and how they drive once they get off the freeway. But again, at this point, there's been no indication that this driver is interested in getting off the freeway. That driver there getting out of the way, very wise. But again, as you're driving here down the freeway on the 405, you're not expecting this to come up behind you, right?
No.
You're just cruising along. I mean, yeah, you use your rearview mirror, but you're not always focused on what's coming up behind you. And then here comes this pursuit out of nowhere.
Minivan, you're thinking, why is this minivan coming up so quickly behind me? And then you might see that CHP, but because they don't have so many CHP trailing, and I don't know if they're lights and sirens. They were thinking about getting over there, the driver right then and there. But again, yes, a lot of things going through this driver's mind. I'm sure they might be contemplating, am I running out of gas? Do I need to get over? At some point, do I need to surrender? But knowing that the CHP knows who is inside that minivan, driving the minivan, and they know that female is suffering some sort of mental health issue, at least we have a little bit of an idea.
And since we learned about the mental health aspect here with the suspect behind the wheel, it does seem like they pulled back, Scott mentioned this, on using the spike strip as a tool. Much slower here, now kind of at a crawl, and CHP units right there behind this driver. But it does seem that they pulled back on the tactic of using a spike strip. When it's available, I know our team behind the scenes was working on getting video from maybe 15, 20 minutes ago of that second spike attempt. When we have that ready, we'll show it to you. That one was far less successful. Both of them were not successful, but that one, the driver got over to the middle lane, and it was going way too slow for it really to work. So when we have that ready, we'll show it to you. But we have seen at least 2 attempts here on the spike strip. Whether they do try it again, we'll have to wait and see. But Scott, traffic here, if you could hear us, this is a difference as far as the traffic. This is perhaps the slowest that we've seen it.
And this is a lot of times when these things get dicey. A suspect gets a little desperate. They don't want to be caught, obviously. They don't want to give themselves up. Who knows what's going on inside their head? But when you get to a spot where traffic stops, then you see them get erratic from time to time because they get that flight, they just got to get away. They just try and flee. And we do see from time to time the pursuits get pretty dangerous when they get into traffic that's stopped, and the suspect has to make a decision on whether they're going to continue to get away and drive dangerously, or if they're basically going to slow down and obey the traffic laws like the suspect has been doing for the most part. So we had just a little bit of a slowdown there on the 405 southbound as we come down into Seal Beach. We're coming up on the 605 freeway here in a moment. Suspect could get on the 605 north, but they've been on the 405 since the valley, and we'll just have to wait and see. We pushed in. It doesn't look like there's anybody in the passenger seat. It's unclear if there are other people inside the vehicle. The back windows seem to be tinted, but CHP may have a better handle on that than we do. We just can't tell. But I would be surprised if they do something too erratic, although the patrol car seems to be fairly close and speeding up. And we're also now seeing speeds as high, if not higher, than we saw earlier. We're up above 90 miles an hour now. So, that happens a lot in these pursuits that I've followed. Sometimes you'll have a pursuit and somebody be driving pretty calmly, and then all of a sudden something just triggers, and they get scared, or they decide, I've got to do something different, and all of a sudden they start driving erratically and start driving at a really high rate of speed. And it wouldn't surprise me if at some point in time they just back off this pursuit. They know who it is. They know they're going to take them into custody sometime. They're going to come back home. They have mental health issues. It wouldn't surprise me if they just back off and say, okay, let them go. We'll get them later.
I wish we knew more about the stolen aspect that you were speaking about. Who knows exactly what occurred with the stolen van? But was it family? Was there a weapon involved? What was the nature of that crime? Because that could change everything.
Or if there's anyone inside this vehicle.
Now that would complicate things. If there's somebody else inside the vehicle, that would change everything. Even if it is stolen, though, they're going to get the car back. They're going to find the car. It's like somebody driving it away to a chop shop, and you're never going to see your vehicle again. Less chance of them crashing with nobody behind them, and they're going to get this person. If they have a phone, they're pinging it, so they know with that person, they know who the person is. If that person has a phone, they can track them. So, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they back off, but there's a CHP supervisor, as you mentioned, Colleen. They're watching this. They're keeping an eye on it, and, that's just my guess, right? But they got a lot better information than I have, so I'm sure they're going to do what they feel is best to get this thing to conclude without anybody being hurt, because that's really the main thing. I mean, they're having a mental health crisis. We have to be conscientious of that fact, and right now it really isn't a danger to the public. So we just hope this thing ends with this individual giving themselves up and they get the help that they need.
Absolutely. And by the way, speaking of giving us a little more insight into how law enforcement do conduct these pursuits, we're going to go to Bruce Thomas. He's on the phone with us, a law enforcement expert. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us during this pursuit. You're seeing this minivan. It's reportedly stolen, but authorities do know the driver inside. They say that it's a female driver suffering from a mental health issue. But now you're seeing another CHP officer getting up a little bit more aggressively towards this minivan. But what are your thoughts? What do you think that the watch commander's thinking about when they're trying to gauge how are we going to stay pursuit and how are we going to pull this person over?
Well, as you said, Colleen, there are the mental health issues. The fact that they know who the driver is seems like, as we heard earlier, that it was taken from without consent. So is it a stolen vehicle? Not really. But in this case, they seem to know a lot of information about the driver, and that weighs to a good fact for them. But it could be a mental health crisis that we're seeing.
Yeah, we're seeing the driver sort of moving in and out of some lanes now, Bruce. But I'm curious to see, they haven't really been breaking many laws except for not pulling over, which is a huge one. I can't imagine just fleeing from police. But do you think they just let this driver just keep going?
Well, you weigh safety for the suspect, safety for the officers, safety for the general public. And as long as those three things are met, then you just will stay behind it and you'll chase it. In this case, the only, like you said, the violations are he took the vehicle or she took the vehicle and the speed. But everything else, they seem to be following the rules of the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, over the speed limit, but nothing excessive. We haven't seen near 100 miles per hour, thank goodness. Okay, Bruce Thomas on the phone with us. Thank you. Stand by. Back to Scott Reif in our helicopter, Air 7. Scott, since we've been on this now for, well, about 40 minutes or so, through the 405 and LAX, where traffic has been light, still light right now. What are you seeing down the road? Does the road remain open here as this driver heads south?
It does, Mark. And transmission, if you hear me, we have an echo. If you could get rid of that for me, I'd really appreciate it. Yeah, I don't see any traffic here on the 405 freeway southbound all the way down past John Wayne Airport. I can see to John Wayne Airport, but past that point, I do not see any traffic at all. It's smooth sailing. Ever since they redid this stretch of freeway, it's been a long time, but the 405 through here was just horrible. If you drove it, you knew that. But you have 8 lanes in both directions on some stretches here as you make your way down into Orange County. So without an incident this time of the morning, the late morning, you're going to see pretty good speeds in the early afternoon. You can tell right there how many lanes they have. And boy, it used to be a parking lot before they did that. But right now, it's just one of those wait and see games, right? The suspect, if they don't continue to drive more erratically, the CHP is just going to follow them until they stop. And at some point, they have to stop, right? They're going to run out of gas, and, hopefully they do that well before they run out of gas, depending on how much fuel is in that vehicle, because it could be a long, long time. But at this point in time, I don't see them getting too much more aggressive on this. But then again, we talk about the mental health issues with the suspect. We talk about the stolen vehicle. That's just what we know, right? And there's a really good feeling that I have that they know a lot more than that, and we just don't know it yet. So that may be the reason why they're just staying on the vehicle and not just letting them go. So we follow these things, and we know that they train for this, so they've got really good procedures and strategies. And at this point in time, no one seems to be endangered, and I think they're just going to follow along until the suspect stops.
Yeah, if it isn't, but that may have been it. The tires seem to be up, and although even when they do hit, they don't go out immediately, I would think that if it was successful, we would see something occurring with some deflation.
But this driver is really starting to drive a little bit more dangerously right now.
Yeah, and back up to 80 miles per hour. And that being said, we said not breaking any laws. Well, you are over the speed limit, and as we've seen now for the past hour, this woman is passing everybody on the road, so certainly going faster than the rate of travel around her. You just hope that officers, CHP in pursuit, just can get her to stop, and hopefully maybe one of these spikes strip attempts is successful. Every single time it's been in the fast lane. She's been on the left side of the road. But I think that one, again, was unsuccessful. When available, we're going to try to re-cue that video and show it to you, see if we can get a better glimpse of how close
you have an
the attempt
eagle eye,
was.
Mark.
We're going to be straight down on it in a moment.
I was saying you have like an eagle eye, Mark, because I feel like I was watching and I still didn't see it. So it really is remarkable. If they got a spike strip right there and that driver avoided it again, it's incredible. This person is driving somewhat in a relaxed manner, but then is quick, little cat-like reflexes to get away from those spike strips.
Let me ask Bruce Thomas on the phone right now, our law enforcement expert, these spike strips, how they are deployed for viewers maybe who don't watch these pursuits all the time. These officers are literally throwing out the spike strip, right? It's nothing more technical than that, right?
Yeah, that's correct. What they have they have different types. They have what they call a tack strip, which is basically 3 pieces, maybe 3-foot sections, that once you deploy them, all of a sudden it becomes 9 feet. And that's what we've seen them use. They also have other ones which are in like a ball where you'll roll them out. But ultimately, as Scott said, the speeds are just so high that to do any kind of pit maneuver would not happen on this vehicle. But at the same time, now what they're planning for is, what if this vehicle gets all the way to the U.S. Mexican border?
And what does happen? I mean, from the law enforcement perspective, because she would just drive directly to the gates, what does happen?
Well, and we have seen it. It's been years, but they have gone in through the gates and crossed into Mexico. And if law enforcement crosses the border, they actually will be arrested and confiscated. Vehicles, badges, guns, equipment. And then the U.S. has to negotiate with Mexican authorities to get not only the police officers back, but the equipment back. And I don't think things have changed about that, because you are crossing the border illegally, sort of.
Wow, that would lead you to believe that they probably will not be following this driver over the border. But hopefully we don't need to get that far. Hopefully this person obviously gets good gas mileage or had a lot of fuel in their tank.
Well, if it was a full tank, she could conceivably, of course, make it to the border. I mean, we got on this pursuit in the Sherman Oaks area. Well, when we joined it, it was in the Sepulveda Pass. So it certainly is conceivable that, they have plenty of time still to drive. If that tank was full. Those are things, of course, we don't know, and you could speculate all day. But, keeping the course, and really, for the most part, has been in that second lane this entire time, just cruising at 75 to 80 miles per hour, 10 and 2 on the wheel. The two concerning factors here that we've said time and time again, reported stolen, and the fact that you have mental health as a contributing factor here. So you wonder, what were the circumstances of how this woman got this minivan, and then what are the circumstances of her mental health, and is she armed? And, which we don't have the information of, is there anyone in the back seat? We don't believe that to be the case, but you got to leave all of those options open. Anytime that we see a pursuit come to an end, you see officers do a full search of the car, and because it's the minivan, because you got the tinted windows, they're going to have to do that as well to make sure no one else is in the car. Air 7 here just going black there for a moment and back on. Scott, what's up ahead? What are you seeing as we're coming up through the San Clemente area?
Yeah, we're in San Juan Capistrano. We're going to be San Onofre here in a moment. As you mentioned, just continuing down the southbound 5 of the center lane. We did get a hold of Long Rifle, and they're going to let us through. You'll see the fog in a moment, but it's actually receded to the shoreline, and we'll be along this stretch of the 5, and we can continue to follow it. I'm not sure if we're going to follow it all the way down into San Diego County and how they're going to work that. I think once that vehicle got to the border, though, more than likely, every time I've seen the border, it's not wide open. You have to stop, and that would give law enforcement a chance, more than likely, to get this over with on this side of the border, but they will not cross. There's no question about that. We've seen just normal driving behavior. As I mentioned earlier, what you're always concerned about is when the suspect gets cornered and they get into a situation where they're in traffic or they just can't continue any further, and then what are they going to do? Are they going to continue to drive erratically and dangerously to get away? And in this particular pursuit, it started in the San Fernando Valley on the 405 the whole way, now on the 5 freeway, and basically there's been no traffic. There's been 1 or 2 little spots where the flow had slowed. that spot where they shut down the north 405 to throw out the spike strip onto the southbound lanes slowed traffic so much that that was ineffective. But basically, we're just continuing. We'll lose the vehicle for a few moments here in the fog. You'll see that in just a moment. And then they'll break out, and for the most part, the fog is receded onto the shoreline. And as I mentioned, Long Rifle, who controls the military airspace as we travel further south, they will give us clearance to go through. If they're active, we have to go a mile offshore. We wouldn't be able to go a mile offshore today because of that overcast that I talked about. We can't fly over that layer. But really nothing has changed for the most part on this pursuit besides a couple of spike strips that they tried since it started an hour and 15 minutes ago up in the Van Nuys area. Always gets dicey. Now, slow up a little bit, Chris. We're going to start to see traffic slow here. There's one little stretch, and I can't tell if that's a CHP unit. It may be coming up here in the center median. They may try the spike strip here. There may be a spike strip coming up here in a moment. The traffic will stop. It will start to slow, and I see a CHP vehicle in the center median on the northbound side, and we're going to see here in just a moment what's going to happen with this vehicle. But I think they're going to try a spike strip here in a second.
Yeah, and this driver really goes fast, though. They're certainly, now you see them having to slow down. Mark, keep an eye out. You seem to always see these spike strips.
Yeah, the vehicle, the patrol car is hidden behind some bushes on an overcrossing, and I think this could be successful. This looks to me like it could be very successful, although, unfortunately, the suspect can't see the officer yet. They're just trying to get through the traffic, and as I mentioned earlier, that's when things get a little dicey, when the suspect gets into a situation where they can't stop. If they would have stayed in that left lane, oh, the CHP officers are out in the freeway. Open up, open up. They're out in the freeway, they stop traffic, and they're going to get a spike strip right now. They're going to wait until that vehicle, oh boy, this is dangerous, and it didn't quite deploy.
So
I don't
close.
think they made it.
And I think that, did that...
Yeah, so close. And boy, you know, that's dangerous for those officers, too. You don't know what that person's going to do, and you're out in the roadway, and you're throwing that spike strip. I mean, obviously, you don't want to get right in front of the car, and it didn't just quite completely deploy, unfortunately.
I just wonder what would have happened if that person were actually in that fast lane.
Well, look, you know, Scott, you spoke to it. You don't know what the driver's going to do. You don't know about the other drivers on the road. So credit to everybody right there to come to a stop, to let those officers do their work. You know, they don't have protective gear on. They're out there in the middle of the freeway. And Scott, I want to give you credit as well. About an hour ago, you were running through the possibilities of this driver, the circumstances of the stolen situation, and you pretty much got it spot on. I mean, you alluded to the fact that this could be a situation that it was taken from a family member.
Yeah, it was just a lucky guess, though. I mean, when they said mental health issues, then it sort of gets you involved. You know, we have somebody with mental health issues in our family. It's really, really difficult. And so it was just a guess, though, trust me. But we've seen that in many cases in the past. It comes back stolen, and then it comes back, you know, in a different situation, that it's a relative's vehicle or something like that. I think Jay may have said may have been taken from a group home or something like that. I'm not sure. But, yeah, that's the information he had. So the mother called. Whether it's the mother's vehicle or not, we don't know. If it was taken from a group home, then maybe the vehicle was actually stolen from this individual. And that was close. Boy, they just about had a spike strip deployed there. And now, are we seeing speeds really increase? You know, sometimes, as you mentioned, Mark and Colleen, yeah, boy, look at that. Once you do get into a situation where you get this individual hyped up and they're like, oh my goodness, I got to turn. What's going on? Everything stopped. The police. And then they start driving more erratically. And that's one of the things I said a long time ago. I'm a little surprised they didn't just let her go. I mean, just have the helicopter follow and just wait until she stops. If she's not a threat to the community, if she doesn't have a gun, if she just has mental health issues, let her calm down. Let her get her on the phone. Let a family member talk to her. That's not the strategy, and maybe it's because they know more than we do. But it seems like by doing that spike strip and not being successful, I think that's the fourth time if I'm not mistaken, when that happens, the driving gets a little more erratic. She speeds up. She tries to get away from police. And the more she drives at a high rate like this, the more dangerous it is for everybody.
Okay, let's show you the 5 freeway coming through La Costa. You're going to be hitting Encinitas here momentarily. Should there be an incident here where the pursuit comes to an end, there's no other route to take, and oftentimes they may close not just one side, both sides of the freeway for safety, and then you got this massive traffic jam. Yes, it's a Monday, but still just a massive traffic jam when there's no other route to take. I mean, when it comes to freeways in this specific area, you're on the 5 and that's it.
Yeah, that is where.
Until you get further south and you have the 805, but for right now, this is your only option.
I have one more question, Bruce, by the way. We're talking about if this driver does in fact make it to the border, is there any sort of communication between, you know, the CHP and I don't know if they have like sort of a sister agency of the CHP. Now look at this motorcyclist right there. This motorcyclist is making gestures at this driver. Why anybody would want to get involved in this, I don't know. And I don't know if this is going to irritate that person, but obviously she is speeding up. I'm going to go back to you in a moment, Bruce, but Scott, this is kind of not great to see what we're witnessing right now.
Not at all. They're going to arrest this guy. I can almost guarantee you.
It's like a vigilante type situation, whether this person was aware.
They ran his plate.
Yeah.
Well, they ran their plate, and so they're not going to be too happy with somebody trying to get involved and maybe, you know, make things worse. But certainly, you know, you go by that vehicle above the speed limit with CHP vehicles behind you. That doesn't make any sense. So we just hope that that individual doing that doesn't make the person, this woman that's driving, you know, drive more erratically. You know, unless this ends in an accident, I don't see this causing problems on the freeway because the volume is pretty light. You know, we don't get down here all this often, obviously, but, you know, we're coming down. We'll be in San Diego, you know, in the next 20 minutes or so. And I don't see any delays on the 5 north or southbound, and the volume is pretty light. So hopefully that's not the case. I wouldn't think it would end in an accident because we just don't see this individual driving very erratically. But this individual with a motorcycle, I mean, they're making things worse, and I don't think the CHP is going to be too happy with him.
No, and it's very unsettling to watch this motorcyclist. They probably have no clue what the person who's driving that minivan, you know, obviously the person in the minivan, they just wanted to get away and just get on their own way until their family member said, you know, please be alerted that, you know, my child is having a moment here and please, we need to get her into custody. But again, I would like this motorcyclist just to exit the freeway and not be involved because that sort of outside agitator doesn't need to be involved.
Yeah, maybe, you know, he said his piece, you know, he did what he wanted to do and now back off, you know, you did what you could. Clearly, you know, maybe frustrated for the right reasons, but no need to get into the mix of what's occurring here. It's just not wise for your own sake.
Fanning the fire there.
Yeah.
But, you know, Bruce Thomas still on the phone with us, our law enforcement expert. Bruce, I was wondering, do you think any part of the CHP is talking to any sort of Mexican authorities as well, saying, hey, if this minivan gets to your border, can you not let the person go through? That's what I don't know if they do that.
Yeah. Yeah, what they have is CHP has definitely contacted their farthest station on this side of the border to liaison with the border and customs patrol agents and officers in that area, just to let them know, hey, this is coming your way. Will it get there? We're not sure, but just so you put your blinkers on that, you know, this could happen. So they've definitely talked, and the border and customs patrol agents do have a liaison with the Mexican authorities on the other side. So, but ultimately, they don't want this vehicle to cross. They want to prevent it. Spike strips, loading up the lanes with patrol cars, or just blocking them are all possibilities. There's endless possibilities, it does seem like. Scott, you're watching this pursuit taking place. Does it seem like that the driver has been going, you know, accelerating a little bit through this area now that, of course, they hit the slowing flow of traffic is sort of going to force them to slow down a little bit. But it did seem like that motorcyclist did agitate them.
Yeah, but after the last spike strip where the officers got out into the freeway, then it definitely appeared that the woman driving the vehicle started to drive more erratically and a higher rate. We had her above 90 there for a moment. We got a pretty big angle here. If we bring up this speed tracker, I'm not sure what it'll give us. Or a moment it'll be a little high, and then it'll sort of settle into what it actually is. I don't think it's that high because of the angle we're at. But certainly you can see the vehicles are probably doing around 65 or 70, and when something like that happens, that's a little scary. They didn't see her coming up behind Bev, and they pulled into that lane. So it's certainly, you know, it's not a pursuit that we would consider to be extremely dangerous, but if the demeanor of the driver changes, if they get trapped, if they get confined in some area, they have to make some abrupt moves to get away, she's shown that she can do that. She's been able to avoid 4 spike strips. She's been able to control the vehicle. She doesn't appear to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol. She seems to have good command of the car. And we just see these same types of conditions on the freeway as I look out. We're coming up on the 805 freeway here in a moment. And that will be a moment when she's going to make a decision. If she stays on the 5 and heads really right into the heart of San Diego, down through La Jolla into San Diego, or she gets on the 805 and goes a little further to the east. And that's coming up probably in about the next 6 or 7 miles, I would say. So in the next few minutes, she's going to be on that split. And it's a big one. With the 5 and the 805 split, it's a pretty big spot.
Yeah, and that being said, it will be an easy transition for her to make that decision, you know, just kind of veers off to the left.
Yeah.
For our viewers here streaming with us, in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be doing a news break for ABC7 on air. So you will see that as well. So when that time comes, we'll pause for about 30 seconds to do that news update, which will be, I believe, on this pursuit to give our viewers all of the updates on what's occurring here as this driver, this woman, has now made her way all the way into the heart of San Diego County, has gone through North County, and soon will be approaching the 805 and the 5 split through La Jolla, and then eventually downtown San Diego, and after that Chula Vista and the border. Will she go that far? Does she have the fuel to make it? We'll have to wait and see, but certainly at this point, we see so much with these pursuits. You never know how it's going to end. And here is another unique one, not necessarily erratic or dangerous that we've seen, but the fact that it's gone this far into San Diego County, we don't cover it that often when that's the case, but there are those concerning factors. Yes, it was stolen from a family member, but with the mental health, you just never know. How will it end?
No, and no 2 pursuits are ever alike, as we've come to know in Los Angeles. We cover a lot of pursuits. A lot of our viewers are very well versed in pursuits as well. I know that I have friends, and they'll want to talk to me after. Why was that person doing this? And I'm sort of just as confused on why pursuits take on what they do. Like this one car that's in the carpool lane. Why aren't they just slowing down and maybe getting over? But they see all the CHP behind them. Yeah,
maybe in the age of social media, everybody wants their video, get a quick shot of it, and hey, look what I saw on the freeway today. Okay, stand by just about 10 seconds or so as you're watching us here on streaming coverage. We will join our viewers on ABC7 for a news update on this active pursuit in San Diego County.
This is Eyewitness News with live breaking news.
Breaking news here on Eyewitness News. You're looking live at a pursuit that started in the San Fernando Valley, has made its way down to San Diego County. This vehicle initially reported stolen. There is a woman behind the wheel of that minivan. The CHP has tried several spike strips on the freeway. The driver has avoided all of them. We are streaming our coverage right now anywhere you stream ABC7 Los Angeles. Join us there live.
All right, welcome back. We are still on this breaking news. You can see the pursuits taking place. You can see we are in San Diego County. We are on the 5. You see images from Air 7 overhead. We have Bruce Thomas on the phone with us, Mark Cotorobles, and I'm Colleen Sullivan. But again, we are following this pursuit. It's been going on for at least an hour and a half for us to be following it, a little longer actually. What started though, we know that a mother called the CHP to report that her daughter is in this minivan. We do not know who actually owns the minivan, but it was reported as a reportedly stolen minivan, and then the CHP got on it. We got on it on the 405 South at Getty Center Drive, and we have watched this driver just sort of stay within this, not just a little bit over the speed limit, from all the way from the valley.
We were talking about this option, I believe right here, she just took the option for the 805 South. She was on the 5 South, and she took that junction to the left, which should put her, there it is, you see on the mapping, the 805 South. So this will be further inland in San Diego County. So this driver at this point then would not be going through downtown San Diego, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, just the route that she is taking. Bruce Thomas, our law enforcement expert here on the phone with us. She had that option, and now on the 805, I guess at this point, it makes me question where it would end, because the 5 freeway is the one that's going to have the border option. I'm not fully up to speed on where the 805 would dump as this van comes up of what's occurring behind them, and the fact that this has been ongoing now for more than 2 hours. You know, even when she changes lanes here, you know, it's not erratic. And Bruce, it goes back to that point of, you know, why not just give it up? You think about all of the other part of this is just the resources, and when you think of resources, the money that this is costing CHP to have all their drivers or their officers involved in this pursuit.
You know, Mark, you bring up a really good point, and I know we've talked about it before, is the drain on the resources of law enforcement. In this case, you have 3 CHP vehicles involved and the use of a helicopter. I know when you arrest for a DUI, you do what a cost sheet breakdown, and that's the time and the effort that the law enforcement agency has spent in arresting this person and processing them. And they actually will bill them for that time.
Really?
I know that's something that's been talked about in the pursuits to monetarily, penalize them. But yeah, it is a drain on resources.
It's got to be part of the conversation that when it's over, like you said, like, was this worth it? You know, the cost, which is ultimately to the taxpayers, right? You know, all of this. And, you know, if it ends safely, if it ends with nobody being hurt, I mean, that's paramount. That's number one, right? You want her to come to a stop. You want no one else involved. You don't want any weapons involved or officers injured. So that's first and foremost. But then it's just, you got to weigh all these options, right? And if they do that review, that's interesting to know that, yeah, they do look this over, and that's got to come into play with their training, right? But ultimately, it's somebody back in the office, right? The watch commander who's calling the shots on this. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You have a watch commander or a supervisor in the pursuit itself, and they're listening to what the officers are putting out, what the helicopter pilots are putting out. And if it does become too dangerous or just not worth it, they're going to cancel that pursuit. I have canceled pursuits in my time, and, you know, the officers aren't happy about it, but ultimately when you sit down and talk to them, hey, it was just too dangerous. We weren't going to do this.
Right.
So, yeah, that's something that they're talking about.
I'm just wondering at what point would they say, okay, you know what, this isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. This is not, I don't know if they think that this person could be a jeopardy to the community, but again, it seems like this pursuit has sort of stayed the same cadence, except for when there is a spike strip happening. But again, I'm wondering when they talk to each other about this, and they say maybe we should have, because you could see this car, they're just kind of weaving. Now the CHP is thinking about getting in front of that minivan. I don't know if you can see that, Bruce, but there's a moment where obviously our view is being obstructed by a bunch of trees, but there's that moment where the driver was sort of weaving a little bit, and then the CHP officer looked like they were going to get in front of it. I guess nope, they're right behind it again.
If Bruce, I can ask you this, because we were talking to Scott Reif earlier about the pit maneuver tactic. From your experience, explain to our viewers why they don't do that right now, because the vehicle's going, 70 miles per hour?
Yeah, as Scott had said earlier, there is an operational area of the pit maneuver. You know, you don't want anything over 40 or 35 miles an hour. Slow speed is better, because what you want to do is it's a controlled accident, meaning you're coming up on that vehicle into the rear quarter panel area. You want to hit it with your vehicle in the front quarter panel area of the patrol vehicle and spin it out of control to where it just loses traction. The mechanism